All right, it's 6 o'clock. That's called the July 10th, 2025 Alameda County Water District Board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Director Akbari.
Here. Here.
Gunther.
Here.
Sethy.
Here.
Weed.
Here.
And Huang.
Here. Director Akbari, would you do the honor?
Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we move on to public comments, I believe General Manager Stevenson has some housekeeping remarks.
Indeed, I do. Thank you, President Huang. Members of the public may participate in this board meeting in person or remotely by either using the Zoom application or by telephone. Any member of the public present in person who wishes to make comments may approach the speaker's podium at the appropriate time. For those participating remotely, note that the meeting agenda, staff reports, and presentation materials for this meeting are all available on the district's website at acwd.org. You may reference the instructions at the top of the agenda for how to participate using the controls in the Zoom app or your dial pad if participating by telephone audio. This board meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public for future viewing. And President Huang, that completes my housekeeping remarks.
All right, next item is public comments. Members of the public may address the board on any issues not listed on the agenda, which are within the purview of the Alameda County Water District. A 5-minute limit is customary. However, I may adjust the extra time allocated to accommodate the number of speakers. Members of the public who wish to address the board on a scheduled agenda item will be given the opportunity to do so at that time. So with that, I am not seeing any members of the public attending in person. How about online? No one? Okay. So with that, then next item is special presentation. But before the special presentation, I believe we have a few adjustments to the agenda.
Yes, staff would like to move up in the agenda staff presentation item 6.3.1, groundwater PFAS treatment facility project, but we can do that as you see fit following our special presentation.
All right.
And we can also gauge whether members of the public join who want to address a particular item. So we're happy to be flexible there. And then for on the agenda item 8.1, closed session 8.1. This evening, staff advises that we don't need to have that closed session item. So we can bypass that once we get there.
Great. Okay, thank you. Then let's move on to special presentation. Update on state water contractors, 2025 priorities, and the Healthy Rivers and Landscape Program.
Well, we are super thrilled to have a special guest star here this evening, and I'll ask our Director of Water Resources, Ms. Heides, to get us started.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. We're delighted to have Jennifer Pierre, the General Manager of the State Water Contractors, here tonight to share an update with the board on what's been going on at State Water Contractors and in particular highlighting work and the latest developments on the Healthy Rivers and Landscapes program. Jennifer oversees a small but very mighty staff that advocates on behalf of all of the State Water Project members on issues of importance to all of us, and really appreciate her making the trip down today from Sacramento to share this information with you and get the board the very latest. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Pierre.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here tonight. Always happy to be out and about in State Project Service area. It's also very different. So thank you again. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So tonight we're going to go over the voluntary agreements. That's what we used to call them. We now refer to the program as Healthy Rivers and Landscapes, and also a little bit about just the state water contractors' priorities for 2025, which we're halfway through. But as you know, with water, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than a year to get things done. So there's going to be a lot of acronyms in this presentation. So hopefully you can refer back to this as needed. Just noting that this is in the slideshow. Most important one, of course, is state water contractors. Just kidding.
Sequin there.
Oh, well, I don't think I use it in this presentation. Maybe it was a premonition. So I want to start with this graphic. We call it the eyeball chart, but basically it's really meant to show what the relationship is to our water rights and all of the different ways that it's regulated. And we're going to talk specifically about one of those ways tonight, but the left is the State Water Project water right, and the right circles are the Central Valley Project water right, and they're all very similar. So you start with your water right. In our case, the Department of Water Resources holds that water right. And then the State Water Board essentially conditions that water right through the Water Quality Control Plan. And that current Water Quality Control Plan is called Decision 1641. And the Healthy Rivers and Landscapes I'm going to talk about tonight is a revision of that. So just keep that in mind as we go. You're probably familiar then that after we get that water right, then we've got conditions related to the Endangered Species Act. And then unique to the State Water Project is also conditions related to the California Endangered Species Act. And after all of those conditions are met, that's the water supply that the State Water Project gets to divert to storage and use. But like I said, we're going to focus on that second circle, Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan. So we have a program. It's called the Healthy Rivers and Landscapes. It's the State Water Resources Control Board's potential pathway for a water quality control plan update. We used to call them voluntary agreements, and before that we called them voluntary settlement agreements. And the reason I put it all out on the slide is because it really was meant to be a settlement between the water rights holders and the State Water Board in essentially resolving issues around water rights in the water quality control plan. And what happened is people started calling them voluntary agreements, and then people started saying, oh, they're voluntary, they don't really count, that you don't really have to do them. And of course, nobody's voluntarily doing a lot of actions that we're going to talk about in a minute. So we felt like a better name for the program is Healthy Rivers and Landscapes. But at the end of the day, this is a settlement process with the State Water Board. So how this all began was the State Water Board is supposed to update the Water Quality Control Plan every 3 years, and they last did that in 2006. And so in 2009, they said it's time to do an update. We need to do a big one because it's not quite working well for the environment and other users. So they proposed to do that update in 3 phases, with phase 1 being the San Joaquin Riverside. So that's where you have SFPUC and Tuolumne Irrigation District and others that you may partner with involved in the Water Quality Control Plan update. Second phase would handle the Sacramento Riverside and the Delta. And then phase 3 would be, okay, now that we've set all the objectives, who has to meet them? So that's what they set up for us. And they said, we're going to use a process or an approach called unimpaired flow, which means that there's a certain portion of water entering the system that you can't store and you can't use. So it just has to be bypassed. And the board staff's proposal to start on the Sacramento River and Delta side, which is of most interest to the State Water Project, was 55%. Meaning 55% of all flow entering the watershed in the Sacramento River could not be stored or used, had to be allowed to run off. And the water users with phase 1 and phase 2 looked at this and said, this isn't going to work. Not only do we have concerns about the environmental value of flushing water through the channelized systems without any other actions, but a 2 million acre foot cut of consumptive use across the system would be absolutely devastating to economies. On top of that, the water rights system, that we have thousands of water rights users, especially on the Sacramento side. It's a complicated system of a lot of users. Having the water board essentially regulate super senior water users is a new thing. And we figured it could take 10 to 20 years at minimum to adjudicate the program. So in response to that, well, let me show you the next slide. And I've got it, so I do it myself. This is what unimpaired flows looks like. So we didn't have this information when we were deciding to move in a different direction or make a different proposal. But this is ultimately what the State Water Board's, essentially their EIR, demonstrated as it relates to the San Francisco Bay Area. And that includes, obviously, Alameda County Water District. This is impacts to the State Water Project deliveries in your service area. So it doesn't break down by agency, but you can just imagine that between Zone 7 and Santa Clara Valley Water District and Alameda County Water District, it's about a 14% on average cut of Table A. This is not our analysis. This is the State Water Board's analysis. So That's what they're proposing. And as you know, if you take that severe of a cut, you can have major water supply interruptions, you can have increased treatment costs, you can have rate increases associated with trying to find replacement water, impacts on the ability for economic growth, including for housing. And what I've circled here is just the baseline as they've modeled it, and then the 55%. So the board looked at a range of unimpaired flows from 35% to 75%, with 55 being the starting point. So those are the two I circled. So again, we didn't have this graph, but we kind of knew it would be pretty bad. And so back in the Governor Brown administration, Governor Brown said, hey, maybe we should settle with the board. There's a lot of precedent for parties settling with the water board in order to address water rights issues. And so Governor Brown began that process in 2015. And when Newsom took office, he kept the program going in 2018, and it is still under development today. It is pretty much ready to go. And what this is an alternative to the unimpaired flow. So what you're going to see and what is being shown in the State Water Board's draft documents are two pathways. One is unimpaired and one is the Healthy Rivers and Landscapes. So it's not one or the other. Parties can join Healthy Rivers. Parties that don't want to join Healthy Rivers are welcome to get unimpaired flow attached to their water right. But for the vast majority of the watershed, we've calculated about 90% of all water users on the watershed are participating in Healthy Rivers and Landscapes. We're proposing a time-bound contribution of water and money, something that we can implement immediately. We don't have to adjudicate. People are saying, we're going to do this, and they can just go ahead and do that. Finally, having some stability in the Delta watershed as it relates to the regulations that we need to comply with. And like I said, anybody's welcome to join. And we do have vast majority are in the program. More specifically, the program's an 8-year program with a potential to extend it to 15 years. And all of the water agencies would be contributing water and funding for purchase of more water and development of habitat and to support a science program. Similarly, state and federal funding to do the same. And there's been a significant amount of state funding already provided to the program through proposition money, through general fund dollars, and it continues to be on the chopping block every year by the legislature, and luckily the governor protects it as part of the final budget. And that happened again this year, but the money that we need to support the program is still available to the program. We continue to work on the federal government side. I don't see that as an issue. Important to all of us, but especially near to my heart, is a governance program that's included here. We currently don't have a table in the Delta where everyone can sit down and talk about how are we coordinating operations. We coordinate with the CVP all the time, but we don't coordinate a lot with, for example, the Tuolumne River parties. We don't coordinate a whole lot with the Solano project, or, we do a little bit with Yuba, but nothing with McKellamie. And even having this space where we can talk about when are you making releases and how might we combine flows so that they're coordinated across the watershed, or what are you learning about salmon migration on your river that might be applicable to mine? We're already seeing that happen. As we develop the program, we already have this table set, and we're already building relationships and dialogues, and we're already finding a lot of opportunities where there's bottlenecks and how to solve for those. So that's, to me, that's the most important part of the program, because we're putting money in water here. It's 8 years. It's going to go by in a flash, but what we're really going to do is have an ability to actually work across the watershed. Also importantly is reporting. And right now there's a lot of facts about the Delta, and everybody's got their own facts. And so one of the important things in moving forward is how do we start to document a collective knowledge so that we're not fighting over those facts. And in fact, we're saying, this is what we know, this is what we don't know, here's where we need to focus resources in both research and environmental commitments. And having that commitment to report annually to the State Water Board, and then do really major synthesis work at years 3 and 6 of the program. These last two things to me are the it. Now, that's not probably true for a lot of water users, I'll admit, but I think a lot of people are very, very focused on the water and money commitments, and I'm not discounting the significance of those. I'm just saying that these processes are, in my opinion, a lot of where the breakdown actually occurs in our system, and I'm excited for those to be fixed. So I mentioned a lot of folks are supporting. This is a subset of supporters, some of the major water districts that have supported the program. State water contractors are on here, and we represent 27 different water districts, and some of them are on here, but there's also a lot like Yuba and East Bay Mud. You can see SFPUC should be on here. But anyway, there's Modesto Irrigation District, Contra Costa, et cetera. So the total program cost is about $3 billion.
Where's ACWD?
I probably had a really quick deadline to get logo on here. But yeah, there's been absolute support, like I said, from all of our members, including ACWD. We'll get you on the next slide if you want.
Great.
Let me know. Okay, so $3 billion program. Like I said, the state's been basically almost all of that in hand. So they've basically half of the programs being paid for by state. And almost the entirety of those dollars are already in hand. So we've got a really good running start here. We do have some federal dollars that we need to get. There's opportunities through existing programs, USDA programs, fish restoration programs. A lot of the restoration work we're going to do is actually related to the floodplains because that's what salmon really need. And that's already work that's being integrated with the flood control system and work the federal government already does. So I'm very excited to start the program with half the money in hand. I think that's a pretty unique thing for an 8-year program. So I don't focus too much on what we don't have. It'll come. There's some other kind of remnant dollars there, but then the public water agencies are also each assessing what's called a diversion fee. And that would be for the state water project, $10 an acre foot. We are not probably doing any early implementation. So really we're talking about $10 an acre foot for years 1 through 8. So if you divert less, if there's a lower allocation year, we're going to pay less. If there's more water, we pay more. That goes into a pot of with other water users' money to purchase environmental water and build habitat projects. So I mentioned the decision-making and governance. Just more detail on this. We have a strategic plan, we have a monitoring plan, we have a science plan. All of this has been provided to the state board. We have a funding plan. We have all sorts of documentation on how this program is going to work. We have a governance group that, like I said, is already in place, but would be formalized as part of the adoption of this program. It is open to environmental NGOs and tribes, and we have created space within the governance document to allow for that. There was a time when we did have a lot of NGO engagement on the program prior to 2020. And a lot of the governance and science components that are still alive and well in the program were significantly informed by their input, and we hope they'll come back. And I think that some will once this becomes kind of the game in town that is happening. I think we'll see those NGOs that like to participate to get things done come to the table. And we've left space for the tribal participation as well. And that may just be kind of an open thing until it's not. And I think we can make, the program works with and without, but we're trying to make space for that. And then, like I said, the annual and triennial reporting is just super critical to be transparent about what did we do, what did we learn, what worked, what didn't work, what should we do next. And in my opinion, informs what's required for the state board decisions, which is called a scientific basis report. And my desire, and we'll see if I get my way, is that this becomes the science basis report, that we just every year build it, right? We're learning this and we make our own science report so that when we get to year 6, which we'll talk about in a minute, we already have our science basis report. So I mentioned earlier that it's an 8-year program with the potential to extend to 15. So what's going to happen is at year 6, we have our second triennial synthesis, and the board is going to say, this is working great, keep going. Or it's pretty good, but we need to make some changes. Or this is a complete flop. No. So I don't know why we've retained the green light, yellow light, red light, because of course it's like a shorthand when you're like negotiating things out, but it lives on and it's not going away. So that's what that is. So, you know, at year 6, like I said, if we can build a scientific basis that really transparently documents what did we learn, what do we do, where do we need to improve, I think that slides right into, is this a green or yellow light? It's not going to be red, but you know, it'll be, I think it'll be a yellow light. That's my guess. I don't think we're perfect, but I think we're on the right path. So hopefully it'll be extended to 15 years. Again, retaining that stability, that regulatory stability in the Delta, and that incredible need to collaborate, especially as climate continues to put pressure on our system. So where are we? We had weeks worth of workshops in the last year and a half, and they're intensive. I mean, it's 5 days, all day long. We're on panels, we're answering boards questions. There's tons of public comment. So that was a big lift to really highlight healthy rivers and landscapes and also participate in the board's public workshops. We're continuing to coordinate with the board staff on questions they have about HRL. That's what we call it, Healthy Rivers and Landscapes. And just continue to develop the program to make sure it's ready to roll when the board decides. We just completed some what are called tabletop exercises. So really want to understand, how does this work? So some of our the obligations are based on water year type, which you don't always know until the end of the water year. So playing around with like, what are the different risks on making calls on fallowing land or cutting exports, and how does this all work together, and how does how the decisions get made? So that was work done. And then we're hoping that there'll be a final staff report and decision document for the board to decide this year. And the governor did put out a trailer bill for healthy rivers and landscapes to exempt CEQA from water quality control plans. That did not move in this budget. I'm not sure if it'll come back up, but that could be very critical to meeting the schedule because there's just so much documentation around CEQA. So it wouldn't preclude the board from having to do their final report because you need a plan. So there needs to be a final plan to approve, but rather probably things like responding to like the 40,000 comments they received and, all those kind of checking the box items. So we'll see if that comes back and we'll see if, we can support it. And then we continually and actively work on federal funding with our partners, especially those that are up in the Sacramento Valley, where a lot of the federal funding would be targeting, like I said, salmon, floodplain, levee, like flood control related salmon projects, which is, wildly successful when we're able to get them done. Okay, so next I'm gonna be done with healthy rivers and landscapes for now. I don't know if you want to do questions. What's the best, questions now or at the end?
Let's go ahead and go through to the
Okay.
end, and then we'll just unleash.
Okay, great. Can't wait. I'll just duck. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple things going on with the state water contractors. One is this maximizing water supply. There were 2 executive orders, one from President Trump, one from Governor Newsom. They were very similar, and they both basically say, hey, we need to do better at maximizing supplies in the Delta. And so we have some ideas. We really think that there's room for improvement on our Endangered Species Act permits. I've been using the Maya Angelou quote a lot lately, which is when you know better, you do better. And that's the kind of headspace we need to get into in the Delta. It's not because there's something wrong with any of our previous permits, but we are investing a lot of money in science and research, and that does reveal new ways of thinking of things. So I think we do need to find a way to be nimble without burying ourselves in paperwork. And I'm not sure we have that answer yet, but I do know that there are opportunities to look at things like spring outflow and the OMR off-ramp, Old and Middle River. I'm not sure that was in my acronym cheat sheet. Operations during storms. What does that look like? Like, are we really going to be having a system where we're making flood control releases at all the rim dams and we've got the pumps basically shut off? Like, is that really what is that protecting? Maybe there's instances it is, but we need to ask ourselves those questions and figure out if there's a better way. And I think that we are investing in the science. And even since last fall, I mean, every time we get a new permit, we're like, oh, actually, we could have done it this way. And so how do we get ourselves out of our own box? So really, what does that real adaptability look like? And there's a lot of dialogue happening. We're working with the state, we're working with the feds, we're working with the Central Valley Project contractors. Surprisingly, I think it's an incredibly collaborative space right now because I think everybody's seeing that there is such room for improvement in how we manage that it is for the first time in my long career, it is nonpartisan, and it's actually a very interesting thing to be part of. So that's kind of our near-term piece, along with healthy rivers and landscapes. That protection of our water right is really critical. Our continued investment in science has yielded significant water supply benefits without impacts to the environment. That cannot, I mean, the Fall X2 provision removal was in large part due to the science investments that we made. So thank you for the support on that. But that's 700,000 acre feet of water in some years. And it's no longer going to exist for the projects. And it was a long battle, but that was a scientific investment. And then water supply forecasting, there's FERO, there's all sorts of activity out there. I think DWR's got a lot of work going on relative to climate analysis. So all of those things are kind of the near-term water supply maximizing. I did want to show just, this was what happened between 2020 and 24. So the state water contractors actually sued the Department of Water Resources in 2020 over our incidental take permit. And they issued a new incidental take permit, I think it was October of last year. And you can see that there's modest water supply improvements, but we're not going to move the needle like a 180 by doing operational adjustments. We have infrastructure issues, which we're not going to get into tonight. But I just wanted to say, I mean, after all of the improvements we thought we made in those good discussions and our happiness with the permit, that's not, these near-term things are not, they're not the thing that's going to change the game here. So I want to make that point. Next, I want to talk about our science program because it is so critical. We have a science plan. We track everything. We put out an annual report. We publish everything. Every single entity that contracts with our science program, we require them to publish in a journal. So our science is all published and at least one manuscript. In fact, I think last month the board approved adding scope to a contract to do another manuscript from the same scientific study. So that's really important to us so that it is part of the scientific base of knowledge. It's very helpful. We get a lot of credit actually within the scientific community for the investments we do. We partner with USGS, UC Davis, UC Merced, Trout Unlimited, big partner lately. We partner with the Delta Science Program. We do joint solicitations with them. So we do all of the things that really a legitimate science program. And we do, everything is peer reviewed. So we follow exactly like any sort of normal science program would do. And that's all funded by dues that are collected by our members. And that's a very, that is truly voluntary and I really appreciate it. But I think it does reward the water system and the management of the system in big ways because we are asking the specific questions necessary to better manage. And that's not always the science that gets done in the broader community. So the other big thing is affordability. We can probably put any topic in California under here, but we'll talk about water and the state water project. So, we have two things. We have basically, what is the cost per acre foot? That's always a question. So on the cost side of things, working with DWR, how do we do asset management? How do we manage the work that's needed to maintain and operate a 60-year-old system without breaking the bank of the ratepayers? We need to work on our new accounting protocols and just make sure we're resolving protest items. We need to look at what is the appropriate investment on statewide benefits. We didn't get into this, but this is near and dear to my heart is reminding everyone, we have 5 million visitor users a year to state water project reservoir facilities in very rural areas. We keep the lights on in this state. So I don't know if you guys knew this, but every summer, when the grid needs to figure out how it's going to make it through 5 o'clock every day in August, they call the state water project and they say, please reoperate your project so that we can keep the lights on. And the DWR says, okay. And we don't get compensated for that. And I don't think that's right. So we're working on that. But there's other public benefits. Flood control. Oroville's the tallest dam in the United States. And we don't have any flood dollars since I think 1962. So we have work to do on this front in terms of what are truly the benefits of the project, because they are not just the water ratepayers, even though we pay all the costs right now. So that's on the cost side, some of the things we're working on. On the supply side, like I said, climate responsive operational rules, what are those? There's near-term rules we can do to really capture these big wet times. The stabilizing our regulations, both through Endangered Species Act compliance, but also what I just talked about with healthy rivers. We have work to do on subsidence repair, which I'm not sure if you've heard a whole lot about, but the canal that's delivering water throughout the state water project to the vast majority of the water users has subsided significantly, and we need to make those repairs in order to capture those big flows and store them, hopefully, in our new storage capacity, which I think we imagine in our minds. There's nothing to propose yet, but I think we're recognizing we need that, along with AFIRO. And then, of course, Delta Conveyance is an incredibly important supply and reliability improvement for the State Water Project that I know you're familiar with, and thank you for your support so far. So in summary, our priorities for this year and probably next year and the year after that, We'll be resolving accounting issues, continuing to have support, stable permitting that's science-based. That is our North Star. Both the regulatory agencies and the water users on all sides. State Water Contractor says those might all be good ideas. If they're supported by science, we'll defend them too. We want to continue our legislative outreach and advocacy. It's been wildly successful. What's the saying? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So we've gotten off the menu and at the table finally with the work that we've done there. Looking at storage opportunities, I think this is going to just, it's obvious that we need to have a multitude of tools in our toolbox, and I think storage is one. The cost share on subsidence and energy, so the subsidence repairs, not extremely relevant to the South Bay Aqueduct users, but very relevant to many of our members, and looking for how to cost share on that. And of course, advancing Delta Conveyance Project, including its permits, its planning, the contract amendment, and for sure right now, the budget trailer bill, which is definitely alive, and we will continue to pursue its passage. So with that, I will take the onslaught, or I forget what word you used.
It was something like that. We were going to unleash.
Unleash, that's
Yeah.
right.
Questions or comments from the board? Director Wee, go for it.
Okay, about 10 years ago, at the Aqua Conference in Monterey, representative of the State Water Resources Control Board made a presentation in which he said their legislative authority related only to flows, nothing more. And they only had the staff to address flows. So, like, in time, has that issue been looked at? Second, we had a presentation by Aqua Region 4 in Manteca, Fish Bio, leading consultants. It said that the predation is so overwhelming that neither flows nor voluntary agreements are going to improve fish migration. That there's been no correlation between migration and flows for the past 25 years. There's been another study. Conspicuous by its absence in your presentation is any discussion of predation.
Okay, on the first question, that's right. So the board has maintained that their only regulatory authority is the regulation of flow. And that's why their proposal is unimpaired flow. But because what the Healthy Rivers and Landscapes is a settlement agreement, they are able to enter into a settlement agreement with other tools in the toolbox. And so that is what you heard that day at Aqua is in fact the position that the board continues to maintain. And the way that we're dealing with that is through a proposal of our own that incorporates both flow and habitat provisions. So I think that's correct. On the predation issue, I just, Fish Bio is very reputable. I agree. Their work is entirely on the San Joaquin River. And the extent to which it's applicable to areas in the State Water Project is a major question mark to me. I think predation is a major issue. To the extent to which it can be managed, I have major questions about, and I get concerned about, especially the water user community saying it's this other stressor over here, and then we go focus entirely on that. And that's really what Fish Bio has been advocating, in part because they're looking for more money to do more studies on predation on the San Joaquin. So I think that's important. I'm a big supporter of science and investigation, but the assertion that that there's not a relationship between flow and fish survival is untrue on the Sacramento River side. I think
Sacramento, the north, but San
that's
Joaquin-
where our water comes from though. So that's why we haven't been as focused on that particular issue, because I think Fish Bio has been making the rounds and kind of trying to advocate for this as a different way of looking at things. Predation is a major stressor at times and at certain locations in the Delta. There's no question about that. Is there a management solution to that? That's really challenging, because there is never, probably in my lifetime, ever going to be a complete relaxation of any sort of catch limit in the Delta. And so without the eradication, I'm just not sure how effective management actions would be. And that's why I'm concerned about latching onto that as something that we should be making major investments in.
Let me add one more.
Okay.
Is the objective of the unimpaired flows and in addition to increasing fish migration, to try and extend the life of the Delta? Is that a stated objective? And if so, at what point do we recognize that the Delta is doomed?
It's the stated objectives. There's twofold objectives. They're called narrative objectives. One is the salmon doubling objective, which is existing in the current plan. And the new objective that has been added that we are comfortable with is what's called the fish viability objective. And so it's very fish focused. And from those two objectives, the board has been clear that they're trying to increase Delta outflow through the Delta. And that, of course, improves water quality under certain conditions for certain users. Not to say that it needs to be improved, but it'll create more fresh conditions when those outflows are occurring. And there are 4 species which have a scientific statistical relationship to outflow in the Delta. None of them are salmon, by the way. So we are testing hypotheses. So the way I see this program is the board has asserted, and so have other agencies like DFW, that there needs to be increased Delta outflow. And different parties have named different amounts of that outflow. And we can't really know that the answer is yes or no or what it should be unless we actually test it. So from my perspective, the whole program is a scientific program to better understand what outflows may be needed, what habitats may be needed in order to support the fish viability and the salmon doubling narrative objectives.
Is there any understanding that with sea level rise, this is an exercise in futility?
That's not entirely true under certain conditions. You're right. We have 3 reservoirs against the Pacific Ocean. So there's certainly times when it's going to be very challenging to maintain water quality, but you know, those are in the more drier conditions. The healthy rivers and landscapes, I didn't get into those details, but it's primarily focused in the years when there's the greatest conflict between environmental water and consumptive use water. And those are the middle year types, above normal, below normal, and dry years. A lot of focus on wet years, not a lot of focus on critical years. Critical years, there's not, you know, we're kind of trying to figure out how to manage the system. Wet years, there's not a conflict. So that's where we focus the resources.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments, Director Akbari?
One question. You touched on funding on slide 11.
Mhm.
Is there any concern around federal funding potentially falling through given some of the stress between DC and Sacramento? And if federal funding does fall through or is cut, how does that impact the cost allocation from other funding sources?
So like I said, we don't have it in hand yet, but we had, in the last administration, we actually had a bicameral, bipartisan work group, legislative work group, federal legislative work group. And I think there is still a lot of support for the program because we do, like I said, the program covers 90% of water users. So it's a lot of red districts, a lot of blue districts, it's all over. And what we're proposing to do with the federal funding are things that the federal government is already doing. So a lot of what the HRL is doing in my mind is like when you want to get something done, you need kind of the champion, you need the funding, and then you need like the permitting agencies aligned, right? You need all 3 of those to actually make something happen. And this is kind of the box that creates that. So I think that we you know, the permitting agencies will be there. That's kind of part of the agreement. Obviously, we're the champions, and then bringing in the dollars, which we think actually exist outside our box. So like I said, like things like levee setbacks or passage improvements for salmon, these things are already part of kind of the planning activities on the federal government at the core. USDA is part of the fish restoration program agreement. There's, you know, so it's really trying to figure out how to go, okay, this program is already doing this, but it's doing it in this silo. How do we funnel that into this program? So I'm not terribly worried about that. And I think the other thing I'd say is everybody likes to be a winner. And when this thing kicks off and starts going, we're going to see, I think it's going to attract more dollars because it's going to be like, okay, we're now doing all this environmental flow release. And I didn't mention how much, but in those 3 middle year types, it's almost as much as a full Folsom Lake's full of water. So we're not talking about like a dribble, right? We're talking about significant environmental water. We're talking about 20,000 acres of habitat restoration across the watershed. So I think there are some agencies that have already done some early implementation, and we're seeing this a lot, and you guys have seen this too. You make it available to fish, they come there. And so I think you're going to see that, and then people are like, oh, I want to be part of that, you know. And so I'm not, you know, I'm an optimist, I'll admit. I don't like to spend my time worrying. I think we just need to get started. It's 8 years. We've been planning it for 8 years. I'm kind of like, we could have been doing this the whole time. Let's just get going. Let's see what we did. Let's document what we did and then make adjustments as needed. But I'm not, maybe other people are worried about it. I'm not going to worry about that because I just think it's going to work and it's going to attract. So. Yeah.
Thank you. I
Sure.
appreciate your perspective.
Sure,
Got a
Giuseppe?
couple of questions, comments. So, first of all, I take the long view here on what we're all trying to pursue as state water contractors. And, one administration or change in administration doesn't affect the long-term picture. Otherwise, we're blinding ourselves. First question, to what extent is, Bureau of Reclamation involved in any aspect of what we're trying to coordinate?
They are a party just as much as DWR is. So both DWR and the Bureau are really critical to the program because we're using the upstream reservoirs, including Shasta, Folsom, and Oroville, to generate water at certain times of the year for the environmental flows that then get repaid by the reduced use by certain water users. So they're very integral to the program. Been at the table the whole time.
As far as federal dollars are concerned, is that coming like from the WIN Act or?
Some of it might, but again, we haven't tagged any federal dollars. I think we've made some requests under WRDA. There's some other requests coming from the Sacramento Valley, looking at some dollars for flood control that would help, that kind of integrate the salmon stuff. So it'll come from a number of different pots. That's been part of our work, is to map out where's the money exists already. It's not a new appropriation. It's just a organization of the appropriations towards the program.
Is there any opportunity to file a WIFIA loan application through EPA, which is supported by all the contractors?
We could, but that would be then our share, not the federal share, right? Because that's a loan.
Right.
Right, we don't want a loan. We want them to pay. We just want a check.
All right. Let me ask a follow-up. to
Okay.
Director Wheat's comments on predation, because I was on the same aqua tour. To what extent is predation a problem in the Feather River and the Sacramento River, moving north of the Delta?
The feather, I don't think it's a major issue. On the Sacramento, it can be a major issue. And again, it's a timing issue. And it's like there's certain hot spots and we know where those hot spots are. So I do think that there's opportunities to do, for example, all right, we're seeing this hot spot appear, go in and do some intensive fishing and then let the salmon pass. But you take a predator out, 2 more come in. So it's more dynamic. You can't fully eradicate them. So I'm not suggesting there's not issues. I'm just suggesting that it's not, it's very difficult to manage and it's not as a singular issue as it appears to be from Fish Bio's work on the San Joaquin.
Specifically where the Sacramento and the Feather River converge, do we have a problem right there north of Sacramento?
I don't know. I've never heard that we did. Have you? I'd like to look into it.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm just curious because that would seem to me to be a real bottleneck if right at the convergence you have a lot of predation going on with salmon trying to come down both rivers.
When the rivers get full right there, they actually get diverted into the weir. So
Right.
there's like the Sutter bypass that goes right into there.
I'm also curious, as part of your scientific studies, salmon and steelhead thrive in a certain temperature range, during their migration season. Have we done scientific studies on Feather River, Sacramento River, to see what volume of water is required to produce the right temperature?
Yeah, DWR is required to manage Oroville storage and similarly on the Shasta River or Shasta Reservoir, they're required to hold a certain amount of storage. On the Shasta side of things, I think there's a huge amount of debate about what the correlation is between storage and the temperature needed and how much of a stretch of a river you need to keep cold at that temperature and under what conditions. So there's, I would say, a significant amount of debate around that. On the Feather River side, I don't think that there's as much debate around it because I don't think that the maintenance of the temperature creates a significant water supply cost. So There's a few rivers, including Feather, that are actually going to fare pretty well under climate change for various reasons. Shasta's, the Sacramento River is not one of them. So there is definitely some documentation where they've looked at which of these systems is going to be even potentially able to support cold water habitat into the future. And I think Feather River will be okay. The river valve project is happening now. That is also going to be helpful in kind of releasing cold water into the river without having to release a huge volume amount. So it's definitely on the mind. I don't have, in my mind, I don't focus on the scientific body of feather temperature because it hasn't really come up as a major issue for us, so.
Okay, last question. I'm going to be attending the next meeting of the Delta Protection Commission
Mm.
as part of my role as chair of the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority. And I'm wondering what role they are playing in all of the project here, if any.
None of the Delta water agencies or parties are participating at all in the water quality control plan. In fact, the State Water Board is suggesting in their draft plan that they should all be exempt from contributing anything.
Is that because they are considered beneficiaries or there's a conflict of interest?
It's because water board staff believe that all of the water diverted in the Delta goes back into the Delta. And therefore there is no impact, if you will, which is untrue because you can divert in May and June to irrigate and it may not come back into the system until August. Meanwhile, the State Water Project is making releases of water to maintain water quality in July. So we take major issue with that. But no, they're not participating.
Do you interface in any way with the Delta Protection Commission?
I don't personally. We have Russ Ryan, who's with Metropolitan Water District, is an alternate in I think one of their committees, and he doesn't. I don't want to say he represents the state water contractors at large, but we do coordinate with him on things that come up that are related to the state water project on the Delta Protection Commission. For example, several years ago, Delta Protection Commission pursued getting the Delta named as a national heritage site. And we were coordinating with them on, would we support or oppose that, or, what was that to us? So as needed, we do interact. On occasion, they ask me to come. They do like a class, like a educational program for some of their upcoming leaders. So we will engage in that when we're available. So it's pretty minimal though.
Well, I know that Brad from the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority, he and staff have met with all the Delta interests, including the Delta Protection Commission members, to kind of soothe things over a little bit and also learn at the same time from what their perspective is on what's going on and how they can create some benefits out of putting in a conveyance system through the Delta so that townships are less harmed and maybe improved in some way. So anyway, I thank you for the presentation. This is really good detail, and I would think that this would make a very nice aqua presentation. There are a lot of people.
We've
out
done
there
a
that
lot of
don't-
aqua presentations on this. Happy to do it again.
Yeah, so good luck in the future.
Thank you.
Oh,
Do we,
I want to throw one more. And Aqua has no position on the Delta Conveyance.
Mm.
It's
I'm
just
aware.
Part of the challenge.
Well, why not? I would ask Aqua members that are supporting the tunnel why a major water.
Bizarre.
I would encourage you to ask Aqua leadership why they do not have a position on that project that is incredibly critical to the vast majority of the state.
Exactly.
Okay.
And how sites
well,
make sense without a Delta Conveyance.
I asked the same question and you get no answer.
Aqua also cannot come up with a position on water rights. So, too many players. Have you had any experience or without a discussion, understand on the legality of using state water for water banking? and the ability to authority to be able to put state water into a water bank and then do it as an exchange. I understand there was some concern being raised by senior staff at Sacramento over that issue.
The issue isn't necessarily banking. The issue is that our water right comes from two places. One is storing it in Oroville and releasing it, and the other is when everybody else on the planet got their water, since we're the most junior, whatever left over, we get to pump. And our pumping rules are based in large part on inflow to the Delta. So if parties upstream of the Delta are diverting water when we are restricted, they are creating more restriction on our exports. So the PPIC actually just put out a great report. They did one last December and then I think about a month ago on this issue. And what they conclude is that there's a lot of space for partnership between those that have the capacity to divert upstream of the Delta and us, if we can figure out how to make sure that we are made whole at the end of the day. And that could be a really critical way of managing water supply, but we need to work on those partnerships. And we are having that dialogue with a number of parties that have a significant groundwater space for storage, whose diversion from the river would ultimately impact our supply. So we're working on that.
But must that issue be adjudicated before we're able to get involved in long-term water banking and exchange?
No, if you would like to use your water once it's delivered, or you do your own exchange, but that's after delivery, right? What we're talking about is prior to the water entering the Delta. And so, yes, we do need to figure that out, because if there's somebody that makes an investment in a groundwater project upstream of the Delta, and their expectation is that they're filling that groundwater space with water that they don't have a water right to, that otherwise would be our water right, we do need to sort that out with them. I don't know, and I'm not an attorney, I'm a biologist, but I've heard, there's different legal opinions about the extent to which you would need to address the water rights issue legally versus having kind of an agreement of how you would share that excess flow. And so I think, but we are working through it. It was an issue actually that Aqua had tried to solve, and then like about 10 years ago. And it was in terms of defining beneficial uses, and it kind of fell apart because the drought happened. And so now we're seeing executive orders from the governor looking for increased groundwater. And so we are, we're getting the message. We need to deal with this. It is better water management. We just need to make sure it's done in a way it does not infringe on the water rights priority system. And of course, environmental NGOs are also very interested in this, because this is another opportunity to reduce inflow into the Delta. So there's a lot of interested parties in this. We did support legislation that ultimately didn't pass last year because the Assembly's clock ran out, not because there was opposition to the bill. And then we worked on another bill this year that never actually got in print. But I think just it's a hard nut to crack, but we're working on it. I don't think we can walk away from it because, again, we would like to be at the table, not the menu. And I think there's sometimes people forget that there's water rights holders downstream of them.
I'd like to offer one last comment, because I've been following this for decades. The decline in the salmon population and Delta smelt, both small and large. At the Aqua conference we had in Manteca, they were showing that over decades, the salmon population has declined even during high weather events and high flows, but it's just been a continuing downtrend. And I think I'm offering an opinion here that I think the entire environmental community has gotten things backwards. When they sued over Delta smelt going through the pumps, no matter what amount of water was flowing through the Delta, smelt was not going to survive. And that was because of the predation by bass, largemouth bass and striped bass. And we haven't seen any smelt in 8 years now, 7, 8 years in the Delta. And it had nothing to do with water flows. And those same environmental concerns, Sierra Club and all the others that tag along with them that sued in court to shut down the pumps, they got it all backwards. And they're the ones that are supporting the multi-billion-dollar bass trade that's going on out in the Delta. So I think we really do have a problem with our environmental concerns and NGOs that tag along behind the Sierra Club and others. Just offering an opinion.
I'll make one more.
Hold on, I believe Director Gunther been waiting patiently.
John, go ahead. I'll go after you.
That it's, I don't know what our timeline is, but each of these issues you've raised will take time to do.
Mhm.
Sitting on the Delta conveyance on the design construction side, we're looking at a $2 million per day increase in cost every day on the finance cost for this project. At some point, it becomes uneconomic. So, it's a lot of money and, it's already expensive. I don't know what our ultimate threshold is, but it's scary.
Again, hopefully the Delta trailer bill will pass because it doesn't approve the project, but it does expedite processes that are creating time extension to
Oh,
getting to
yes.
decision point.
We
So
have to sign it. And ultimately, we've got the Pacific Ocean for desal, unlimited water supply, and with AI, we're gonna have power beyond our imagination. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your personal
I'll-
opinion also, Director Gunther.
Well, a lot of good ideas and thoughts from the board, and I support them to a degree.
okay.
First, I'm on board. But I want to say that I believe that Pandora opened the box twice. Hope jumped out the second time. Some people don't believe that story. I believe it happened. So there's always hope.
Mhm.
And this is our hope. We got to do this. I'm concerned. NGOs are activists. It's their way or the highway. If they're not on the table, they're going to do everything they can to derail it. Presently, we're in a very good political situation at the state. I think we have people up there that have some degree of intelligence and knowledge in that we can't just do my way or the highway. Predation is a problem. Global warming, sea level rise, who knows what is going to happen? We don't know. And so we can't make decisions, or we can't stop making decisions because we don't know. Got to push forward. Thank you. I'm a firm believer in pushing forward. I love the concept of science. I just hope everybody else comes on board. To say things that, this is going to happen, we don't know. We got to take it with that approach. Is global warming going to take out the Delta smelt? It might.
It will.
It might. We'll take out the salmon. I take out a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's going to be well beyond our control. So anyway, said my piece. I like it. Let's try to make it work.
I have to say you're speaking my language because my motto is just get started and my kids hate that, but that is my motto.
Yeah.
I firmly believe it. Just start the first step.
Yeah, no, this is a very complex problem and there will always be questions. There's no way to answer the question 100%, right? So it's always you do the best you can with the information you have. So I'm actually really happy to hear about the science program and the fact that there's a forum for dialogue for different parties through the governance project program. So that definitely is music to my ears. So thank you for creating a great program with the team. And thank you for the very clear presentation. But before we end, I did notice we have one potential member of the public online. I would like to open this up. If you have any questions or comments for the board or Ms. Pierre, would you please raise your hand in the Zoom app? I am not seeing any, so any question from staff? I have never asked that question before.
Oh, talk about unleash.
I know.
I
Taking
don't
this
think staff
opportunity,
has
okay.
any questions, but appreciate the opportunity.
And with that, I'll say thank you so very much for traveling down here. I'm sure the traffic is horrible, and thank you for very clear and concise and extremely useful presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Have a good night.
Thank you for the presentation.
All right, since we potentially have one member of the public, I would like to reopen the public comment period. If our members of the public has any questions or comments for the board on issues, items that's not on the agenda, but within the purview of Alameda County Water District. If you are here to address the board during public comment period, please raise your hand on the Zoom app, sorry. I'm not seeing any, so are we thinking of moving item 631 up?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, President Wong. Would like to move item 6.3.1 up, given the hour and need to be able to have staff move on with their actual lives and other obligations. So if it's okay with the board, we'll do that. As a quick reminder, the board took action at the June board meeting to accept completion of the PFAS treatment facility project, which is a big deal for the organization. The board's been very engaged, very involved, and very interested in that project. And normally during, accepting completion or a significant milestone in the project, staff would provide a bit of an update, review, some additional information in addition to just a staff report. At that time, the entire project team was off at ACE giving a presentation about that project. And so we promised, okay, we'll provide the board with that update and some additional information in a presentation at this board meeting. So we're really happy to have our team here. And I think I'll turn it over to Mr. Awoke to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, board members and staff. As Mr. Stevenson indicated, this is a very exciting item and a very exciting time for us to talk about this project. We've had several presentations in which the board took action or got informed about progress on the project. But we're at the finish line and we're going to be sharing some of the successes, the lessons learned, and things that we maybe potentially will do differently next time on the project. I do want to take this opportunity to thank not only the superstars in the room that made this project a reality, Miss Carrie Smith, who's the project manager, Ben Egger is our project engineering supervisor, Ms. Rekha Pagunta is the project engineering manager, but there are many people who are not in the room but who've contributed a lot to the successful completion of this project. So I do want to take this opportunity to thank for their contributions. With that, I'll just simply turn it over to Ms. Carrie Smith to provide that update and final closeout presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rook. Good evening to the board, public present, and fellow staff. My name is Carrie Smith. I'm a project engineer here at the district. And tonight I'll present to you on the conclusion of the groundwater PFAS treatment facility project. I'll go through some background on the project, an overview of the project, and then now that the project is at completion, an update on that and some conclusions, lessons learned from the project. As a reminder, for the need for the project began because California established notification levels and response levels for PFAS between 2020 and 2022. And the board directed that product water delivered to ACWD customers should have PFAS concentrations below California's notification levels. ACWD also began proactive monitoring of PFAS in our groundwater before it was even required, and did find that our groundwater sources had PFAS concentrations above notification levels. So this had an immediate impact to our blending facility, where that groundwater is historically blended with surface water imported from SFPUC for hardness control. The immediate response was to adjust operations at the blending facility to now control for PFAS in addition to hardness, because that imported water was also non-detect for PFAS, but this significantly lowered production at the blending facility. This project is just one piece in ACWD's overall PFAS strategy. Our initial response to finding the PFAS was, of course, to adjust operations at the blending facility. This project is the interim treatment. ACWD is continuing to consider PFAS and the impacts PFAS will have, looking at our water supply options, looking at treatment options and needs. So this is just really one piece in the overall puzzle. So this project included information gathering and alternatives analysis, some bench scale testing of PFAS treatment options, and then of course, design, construction and controls for the treatment system. In this project, we did have to design considering a certain level of uncertainty when the project began. So it began because of the regulatory levels or the notification levels and response levels established by California. And we needed treatment because of the immediate impact to our production. However, federal MCLs at that time had not yet been announced, but they were expected. So we knew we needed treatment as soon as possible, but we didn't know exactly how much we were going to ultimately need. So for this project, we designed a 15 MGD system that could be constructed in phases, beginning with 6 MGD system. And so this photo in here shows a bit how that was done. So you can see the pump houses that we installed. And then, here's our spots for additional pumps. Here are the cartridge filters that were installed, and here are the spots for additional cartridge filters. Additionally, all of the underground piping that was installed, that is sized to be able to accommodate the expansion. So that really gives us a lot of flexibility and an ability to respond without huge impacts to this facility that we just built. And the next couple slides, I'll go through the project design. So this treatment facility can treat water from either one or both of the district's PT and Maori well fields. Water that is treated by the facility is sent to the blending facility. Any water produced from the PT and Maori well fields in excess of what is being treated by the ion exchange facility can be sent directly to the blending facility. And additionally, imported surface water is sent to the blending facility. So those three sources then are blended together, and water delivered to the customers then meets regulatory requirements for PFAS as well as district requirements for hardness. And here's another image of the facility. So our the water comes in over here. First goes through the feed pumps. Next goes through the cartridge filters for particulate removal before entering the ion exchange vessels. This is so that we don't have any clogging of the ion exchange vessels. We have 3 vessel trains with 2 vessels each in a lead-like configuration. After going through the ion exchange vessels, the water goes through booster pump station before exiting the ion exchange facility and entering the blending facility. We have those 2 pump stations to overcome head loss in the cartridge filters and the ion exchange vessels. We have the electrical equipment is shown in blue. We have some canopies for equipment and personnel protection. And then you can see in white here, additional equipment that can be installed should the district decide to expand the facility. As I mentioned, there was an immediate need for PFAS treatment due to the impacts at the blending facility to its production. So we had a few different strategies to implement this project as quickly as possible. At the outset of the project, we even had an alternatives analysis to determine the best project route to deliver an expedited project, thinking of everything from can we rent a trailer that we park next to a well and treat PFAS to alternative project delivery methods, and ultimately landed on the approach that I'll be describing. So one of our strategies was to hold design workshops with stakeholders in lieu of the traditional submittal and comment period. This allowed us to get all of the design consultant and all of our internal stakeholders in the room together at the same time so that we could discuss any overarching issues and give any major comments to the design consultant right away so that they could immediately then move on with the next phase of design while we followed up with a more detailed commentary. Risk management was also an important part of this project, always weighing risks in the decisions that we were making. Certainly, any delays to the project is a risk because we're not getting the treatment and restoration of production capacity that we need. And there are also risks to taking non-traditional routes as well. So keeping that in mind throughout. Of course, a rapid deployment of a project requires rapid and effective decision-making. To facilitate this, we held monthly steering committee meetings. The steering committee included the project management team as well as internal executive staff. This allowed us to keep the executive decision makers informed of what was going on in the project, as well as highlight any issues that we were foreseeing. So that way, when a decision was needed from executive staff, they had the information that they needed to make that decision quickly, as opposed to a more reactionary approach. We also pre-purchased equipment that we knew had a long lead time as opposed to including it in the contractor's scope. We procured these during the design phase before we even had the 100% design. That included the pumps and motors, the transformer, vessels, the ion exchange vessels, and the PLC equipment. While this did help expedite the project, it certainly added complexity as well between the consultant contracts, the contractor, and the pre-purchased equipment. There was a total of 9 different contracts to administer for this one project. Additionally, we divided the construction into 2 tasks. This is because we learned that the MCC, which is needed for full automation and control of the facility, it had a long lead time, a year plus, but it was not something that we could have pre-procured. So task 1 was to construct all activities that would allow us to begin treating water, running the facility in a manual mode with some limited temporary electrical facilities. And then task 2 was all remaining activities to complete the project. So we began treating water while the task 2 activities were ongoing. Our construction contract also included an incentive payment for task 1 and liquidated damages for both tasks. We ran into a few challenges during construction. I have a couple examples to share here. One was a transformer. The manufacturer was being quite unresponsive, and we eventually learned that there was going to be a 1-year delay on the delivery of that transformer. So at that point, we decided to pursue renting a transformer that we could use until the permanent transformer was delivered. So both the district and the contractor, we looked into rental transformer options. Ultimately, the contractor was able to locate one first, and so we issued a change order for that to be able to keep the project moving. We similarly worked with the contractor to keep the project moving when they identified some materials procured exactly as specified in the contract would have had a long lead time, could have delayed the project. And so when the contractor identified these items, we worked together to come up with a solution to keep the project moving. The contractor would propose a substitution. We would work with our design consultant to evaluate that substitution for functionality with the system. And the district had some increased flexibility in allowing substitutions compared with other projects. And then finally, we were tying a brand new facility into an existing facility. So there's some challenges related to that as well. Here I have a couple of completed facility photos. You can see, our vessels here, pumps, cartridge filters, and then here is the empty space where the future vessels would go. We had a number of successes on this project, but before going through those, I want to acknowledge that we would not have had all of these successes without the input and collaboration of the larger project team. There were a lot of people involved in this project. Certainly the support and direction from the board and from our executive staff, a lot of our internal team, not only project engineering, but in the water production division, the facilities maintenance division, the distribution maintenance division, and our design consultant, Trussell and Jacobs, and our contractor who also worked with us on keeping the project moving forward, Myers and Sons. So there's really a lot of people involved in making the project a success. So of course, most importantly, PFAS removal. The water, the effluent from the ion exchange facility is non-detect for all regulated PFAS, so that is a success. We also were able to achieve our timeline. The CIP forecasted completion of the project in 2025. We began water treatment in a manual mode in September 2024 and determined substantial completion of the project in March 2025. And we also completed the project within budget. The total project is approximately $26 million, with 17 million of that being the final construction contract cost. That included just under 7% in change orders. And a lot of those change orders were actually quite helpful to the project, such as I mentioned with the rental transformer items like that. Having this facility allows us to avoid increased SFPUC purchases. That is a costly source of water. So there is a projected return on investment in the project in only 3 years. Some of the strategies that contributed to the success of this project included certainly alignment around clear objectives. We knew we needed to remove PFAS. We knew we needed to do so as fast as possible. Also understanding the risk profile. For example, the transformer, when the manufacturer is being unresponsive, we identified this might be an issue. And so when we learned that we did have that year delay, we already knew that renting a transformer was going to be an option. So we immediately decided we could pivot to that. Swift decision-making, as I mentioned, with the steering committee, and a lot of stakeholder engagement and support, certainly involvement of different departments at the district during design and during construction, and also training for district staff as well. This is a brand new facility that we'll be working with. A few of our lessons learned from this project, pre-purchasing equipment certainly can save project time, but not staff time, so something to weigh as far as the project priorities. Anticipation of deferred maintenance item, we were tying into an existing facility, so in future projects, it'll be helpful to consider what challenges you might come across in such an application. Also identifying risk mitigations and triggers for high-risk activities. I think I've touched on risk a couple of times, but this was a continuing theme throughout the project. And then finally, project resource allocation and prioritization. This project was a high priority, and certainly a lot of resources were allocated towards it. So next steps, we have in the CIP a project to integrate controls between our blender, SCADA, and wellfield operations. We will also need to replace the ion exchange media eventually. And as I mentioned, this project is just one piece in the district's overall PFAS strategy. We're continuing to monitor regulations related to PFAS and keep our eye on what might be needed as far as future treatment of PFAS, future treatment of other water quality concerns such as hardness. With that, I can take any questions.
Questions or comments from the board?
Just the comments.
Go for it.
First, outstanding job. Particularly the task 1 and task 2, the realization, hey, how to get by that. concept of set it up manually and then we can finish the electronics because we know that's going to be a problem. The long term, dealing with the transformer, you know, you didn't let things get in your way. Far too often, things get in the way, they delay. The collaboration between the team, the contractor, I think it all worked. It's a great project. I think it'd be, you know, it looks like to me a great case study as to how to do something. This is not easy. Very well done. Thank you so much. You're not perfect, but you know what? Pretty darn close. Now Ben can only get me that cover on my meter.
All right, moving on, staying on the subject.
Gary, I'm gonna offer the same compliment because Jim and I were out there during the, I think halfway phase of the project and saw the trenching and everything else that's going on and a lot of heavy equipment out there. And to see these final pictures, I mean, it just looks like brand new. It's slick. And I also want to congratulate the staff, everybody from engineering here. What was outlooked at first as a 1-year project was completed in significantly less time and right on budget. And I think those are both compliments to the strengths of our team. And even I couldn't believe how quickly we came all the way through the project, got it up and running and operational. I just have one question, which is related to how often do we have to do the disposal on the lead vessel and turn things around? How frequent is that?
The estimation that was done based on the bench scale testing is about a year and a half to 2 years. But yeah, we'll confirm that as we continue to treat water.
Yeah, anyway, good work.
Thank you.
Director Wee?
Congratulations on a project well done, all under budget. I think it was a $4 million saving, below estimate, and as well as it's on time. I would be interested in looking at the analysis that came up with the 3-year ROI and how that was calculated, what the assumptions were in that part of the process. And next, additional discussions on what we will do with the permeate and the byproducts of the contaminated byproduct, which now is loaded with PFAS, regulated by CERCLA. And what the cost is, that cost part of our cost benefit analysis. Thank you.
Director Akbari?
Well, I'm going to echo similar sentiments. This is a really exciting project. I think I've mentioned this before, but outside of rates, the biggest question that I get out in the community is around water quality, and PFAS obviously is a really big factor in that. And so just being able to talk about the fact that we are ahead of the curve with our PFAS treatment facility is something that I take a lot of pride in, and I hope you do as well, because this is a really fantastic project. And I think Director Gunther hit the nail on the head about this being almost like a case study on how you can get around challenges. I think your strategies for rapid completion were really, really interesting. I'm hoping that we can just start to build some of those kind of ideas into our future projects. So I think there's a lot that we can learn from this one. So again, congratulations and a really, really job well done.
Well, I'll echo a lot of what other directors said. It definitely takes a village. I think it takes almost the entire ACWD to get this project done. You definitely have a lot of moving parts, and the team is really nimble in your ability to make decisions really quickly. And I know you met some challenges. You were kind enough to just say older infrastructure, but yeah, that, you're just the ability of the team to think really quickly and still move the project along is pretty incredible. And on a more personal note, I got to say, I work in the environmental field and I got a lot of bragging rights. I get to say, there is a PFAS treatment plant down in Fremont and it's already operating. Thank you. On the personal side, I got a lot of credit for that. It's like, yes, we have one in the Bay Area. So thank you. Definitely really great projects. But before I let you guys go, I do want to open it up to our member of the public online. If you have any questions or comments you have for staff or the board, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. I am not seeing a hand. Then with that, I'll say thank you. Great job and great presentation.
Thank you.
All right,
Right.
thanks very much, Mrs. Smith. And yeah, I think the board said it right. It was a fantastic team on this project. All across the district. Most work groups were engaged in this, and I think a lot of people really threw themselves into this project, recognizing the importance and what we were trying to accomplish. But I'll also say that the best team in the world isn't going to be effective and productive and efficient without good guidance and leadership, and Carrie did a fantastic job on this project. And so congratulations.
Congratulations.
And that's why they were at ACE telling the rest of the world how to do the same thing. Right.
Perfect. So before I move on to item 4, do I have a request for a break?
Break would be nice. 5
Okay.
minutes or so.
So is 7:26? Can we come back at 7:35? I give you 9 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Recording in progress.
All right, it's 7:37. The board has returned from a short break. Next item would be item 4, consent item. Consent calendar, do I have a motion to add items to the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion, but I have a short comment on one item, 4.4.
5.4?
4.4.
4.4.
That's authorization for directors to attend the 10th Annual California Water Data Summit in Davis, California.
So should we take the item off consent?
No,
Any?
I'd like to attend that.
If they're just gonna
I'm
make
not
a
sure
brief
if it-
comment, you can
I'm
keep it
not
on, but if there's
sure.
gonna be discussion, you should probably remove it.
Okay, so it's
Remove
going,
it?
no, is it a comment or is it a discussion?
the comment.
Okay, then we could keep it on. All right, motion please.
First of all, I don't think it's properly titled. It's the California Data Collaborative or something. That's what it's properly called. CADA is how, or DC is how they normally call it. So the Water Summit is for the Water Education Foundation. I think there's a little confusion here. But this is the 10th year of this conference. We were one of the initial sponsors, and we've been a supporter every year. So we get complimentary free tickets for board members and staff. And we have attended every year, and every year we have to put it on the agenda for approval. And I would just like to ask if we could take a look at adding this to our list of approved meetings.
And on that very happy note, can we just make that as a director's comment request?
Yeah, that's
All
good.
right.
Because I mean, we go every year and I don't understand why it has to be approved singularly by itself. So that's my comment.
Okay, so.
I will go ahead with the motion to add to the consent calendar items 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, and 5.6.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. Do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar as amended?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. So is it okay I use the word accept or adopt? Should I modify that to adopt the consent calendar?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think
Okay. All right, with that, then let's move on to item 5.7, please.
Okay, and item 5.7 is resolution awarding a design build contract for the main renewal Fremont Crestwood Street project. And this is the item that Director Weed has something to say.
I have property within a prescribed distance of one of the sites, so we'll be leaving the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weed.
First of all, where is Crestwood Drive?
So please let the record reflect that Director Weed left the room at 7:41. And I believe Director Sethy's question will be answered by the presentation.
It will indeed. We'll show you on a map, and our presenter will be sure to point it out. But to get us started, I'll turn it over to our Director of Engineering and Technology, Mr. Awoke.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening again, board members, community members, and staff. As the board knows, the district has a robust main renewal program, and the board actually recently approved the latest two-year CIP budget, which contains funding for several main renewal projects and upgrade projects. In addition, over the past several years, staff has been working on a main renewal program implementation plan in order to increase our mileage annually of pipe renewals and upgrades. And one of the innovative approaches that we've been looking at is using alternative contracting methods. And the item before you this evening is actually an alternative contracting method or alternative project delivery method, a design build contract for the main renewal project, Crestwood Street project. The project covers several areas within the city of Fremont, and our presenter, the project manager, Mr. Ryan Seidlitz, will walk you through that. But we also have Ms. Rekai Pagunta, the project engineering manager, and Mr. Chris Delp, who's the project engineering supervisor, to help answer any questions you may have. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Seidlitz.
Thank you, Mr. Awoke, Stevenson, board, staff, member of public. I'm Ryan Seidlitz. I'm a project engineer with the district, and I'm the project engineer for this project here, agenda item 5.7. I'll be providing a project update and recommendations for the main renewal Fremont Crestwood Street project. For starters, I'll just go through the agenda right here. I'm going to be giving a summary of the project, going over the design build selection process and evaluation, a review of the recommended action items, providing staff recommendations, and providing a time for questions as well. So this project is part of our main renewal program. As was stated, the objective of the main renewal program is to proactively renew the water mains throughout our system. There are about 900 miles total, of which 71% is asbestos cement pipe, making up about 640 miles of asbestos cement pipe in our system. Additionally, the main renewal program seeks to improve our seismic reliability, in the case the next big one. Hopefully, the goal is to accelerate this program, and every day we will see a minimization of leaks, pipeline failures, and future service interruptions. And as a focus on this program, we're aware of the increased consequence of impact of large diameter mains, and so there's a primary focus on those. But the vast majority of the length of water main in our system are these smaller diameter mains that are through all the residential areas. And so we have to make sure we incorporate big portions of that as well. This particular project is small diameter residential. To help accelerate the program, on this project specifically, we are seeking a fixed price design build procurement method. This will hopefully accelerate the program because it involves, whereas the progressive design, the typical approach is the design bid build delivery method, which you see on most of our projects where the district will get to 100% design and then circulate that for contractors to bid on, and we'll go with the lowest bid. Progressive design or fixed price design build involves, before the project is designed, circulating it, securing a contractor or a design builder, and they will perform both tasks, designing and building the project. This should streamline things throughout the process as the contractor is on board the entire time. Also, in this project, as I'll be showing you in the next slides, there are 5 different areas throughout Fremont. And by packaging these in a fixed price design build package, we're able to start design on all the locations. And then as we finish design on one area at 100%, we can start construction while we finish design on other areas. As I just stated, there are 5 residential areas throughout the city of Fremont, and in the next slides, I'll be showing you exactly where they are on a map, as was requested. The scope of this project involves installing approximately 3 miles of predominantly 8-inch diameter water main in all residential areas, and then also installing the service laterals, meter boxes, fire hydrant assemblies, blow-off assemblies, air valves, and gate valves along that same span. We'll also be removing sections of removed from service AC pipe that is in the ground to save time and cut costs in the design changes that we've been seeing lately. And where we do this same trench replacement, we will be putting residents on a temporary bypass to keep them in water while we perform construction. This is an overall map view of the 5 residential areas that we are addressing. They're numbered areas 1 through 4 and 9 because they were identified years ago, and areas 5 through 8, which exist in Union City and Newark, so they're not shown on this map because they're on the north and west sides there, are addressed through other projects that are either in construction or already complete. Zooming in, this is project area 1. This one is a contender for same trench replacement because the water main is in the middle of the street in the public right of way. It's approximately a mile long, and it is the largest area we're replacing. This is just across Auto Mall Parkway from here and east of Fremont Boulevard. Project area 2 is actually over by Ohlone College. Ohlone College would be just off to the right of this screen here. That furthest right street is Mission Boulevard. Ohlone is right across the street from it. And then we are specifically replacing the pipelines on Bryant, Cedar, and Ellsworth Street. Bryant is the westernmost street highlighted in red. And as you can see on the northwest corner there, there is Mission San Jose Elementary School in the same project area. So we're already aware that we're going to have to be very, very proactive and consistent with our public outreach on this project. But part of the nature of being a design build project, well, we would ordinarily have a slide dedicated to public outreach about what we've already done. We don't have a design yet or a schedule that's specific enough to really enact that yet, but it is a priority that's outlined in the RFP and the contract. Area 3 is just north of Area 2. That's Bryant Street on the east side. So we're just above Mission San Jose Elementary School now and just south of Washington Boulevard. This will also potentially have impacts to the school, so we'll make sure we prioritize the public outreach there, but it's a little bit easier to create a bypass or detour here because the street on the left there, Jerome, also comes off of Washington, so we can just go around it. Project area 4 is across Fremont from the rest of them. This is coming off of Thornton, which is the northernmost street shown there. These are towers on Dondero. These are old neighborhoods, narrow streets, and we'll be doing a new alignment here. It's approximately 2,600 feet of pipe. And this is project area 9. This is where the namesake of the project, Crestwood Street, comes from. That street at the top running across the T there, that's Crestwood. And we used that as the namesake of the project because it's the longest single street that we're replacing main along. And then that's Lindenwood and Arkwood that are also included in this area. It's approximately 4,000 feet total. Some of the unique elements of this project are the use of the fixed price design build delivery method for this project, as well as removal of the retired asbestos cement pipe from the ground in the areas where we're replacing the main in the same location, implementation of a temporary bypass system, and use of restrained joint PVC primarily with the optional use of ductile iron pipe for pipeline construction, specifically maybe in areas where the DDW permit requires it. Fixed price design build projects do also have their own unique fixed price design build procurement method. It's a two-phase procurement method. Starts off with a request for qualifications, which was posted on our procurement website, open to everybody to provide their qualifications. There's no price component in this. It's to provide a short list of qualified proposers that are then invited to participate in the RFP process. In our case, there were 5 statements of qualification submitted, and we selected 2 of those teams to progress on to the RFP process. And once the RFP was circulated, we received our proposals back, conducted interviews with those 2 proposers, and made a selection. The RFP itself highlights or defines the criteria for evaluating their proposals. It's a best value proposal. So whereas design bid build is just the lowest bid received, this is best value. So in our case, we opted for 40% price score and 60% technical score. The price score is defined by that formula there. So it's dependent on the lowest one received. And then the technical score is 100 points total, split up into those 4 components: the team design approach, project coordination, project management approach, and schedule. At this point, I will provide a review of the recommended action items, and then I'll pause for comment from the board. So the CIP budget adopted for this project on the 2025 CIP budget is $17,274,436. As I said earlier, we received 2 proposals from our RFP, and we've opted for West Valley Construction Company at a contract value of $19,049,100 and a contract duration of 930 days after issuance of the notice to proceed. A reminder, as a design build project, this is design and permitting and construction. That's why the schedule looks long. And now I'll open the floor for board discussion.
Questions or comments from the board?
Like the concept of the use of design build. I'm very familiar with this area. I no longer live there, but I used to live on Jerome. So Jerome and Escobar, as a matter of fact, there are lots of you're right, there are ways to get around. Can be heavy in traffic. At school will be a little bit of a burden. And hopefully I'm not going to be going to my vet during this time because he's on the chart too. But good luck. Anyway, these are going to be tough. And I think the thinking out of the box, I appreciate staff's looking out of the box at this to look for a different concept. It might be hard for the public to understand what we're doing, but this, I think, is going to give us that flexibility we need to do these projects in these streets. These homes over there, particularly I know on Jerome and on Escobar, there's some pretty big houses over there now. They weren't there when I lived there. I watched them being built. My brother-in-law built one. So it's going to be tough, but we'll do it. You guys can do it. I trust you.
Thank you.
I'm all in favor of design build in terms of expediting projects. I've been an advocate for this since I've been on the board. I like the way that we accelerated things on the PFAS program. And you can clearly tell the accelerated time benefits from doing that. I would anticipate that we would have the same here. But let me ask a couple of questions. Has the staff tried to even subjectively evaluate how much we're saving in total costs? And that's between time saved and an actual work performed out in the field.
Staff has. And I know Ms. Gunther could speak to that.
I'd like our ratepayers to know, when we adopt this approach, here's why we're doing it, and this is essentially the cost savings to our ratepayers.
Yes, absolutely. One, I heard that the cost savings with this approach, and then the second is the time savings. So answering cost saving question, typically what we have seen over the last bids was we have seen bids in the range of $6 to $7 million for something like of this size, small diameter pipeline program. So in this case, using the design build approach, um, apples to apples comparison, we're looking at 4.8 million per mile. So that would be the saving that we are seeing. So
Yeah.
about 6 million to 4.8 is the difference.
Per mile.
Yeah,
So
it-
we're saving about 30%.
Yes. So this is just comparing the new alignment of pipe that we traditionally use on normal design bid build
Right,
approach.
right. So, all of these projects are occurring in Fremont, city of Fremont. And I know the city staff has big concerns about keeping asbestos cement pipe in the ground with all their environmental stuff that's going on. So is that a requirement of the city or are we doing this voluntarily?
So in this specific case, we are doing this voluntarily. And in the past, that is correct that the city required us to remove the asbestos cement pipe from the ground. And that happened, that requirement came on Driscoll main renewal project that was recently completed, but staff negotiated removal of those encroachment permit conditions from Driscoll project. However, this project will help us understand what the removal of AC pipe from the ground would mean for the district. So this is something that we are voluntarily doing.
And I would just add that, not all of the existing pipe that's being replaced here is actually being removed from the ground. Much of it is, that's really where it benefits the district. This is really the district's strategy in this case. I think in addition to just the project delivery method here, the contracting method, there's a lot of other things that we're working to improve in terms of our overall renewal rate. We ultimately need to get over 1% renewal rate, as much as 2% renewal rate. That's going to take a lot of, like you say, out of the box thinking and out of the box approaches. This is a step in that direction in multiple ways. The project delivery method, but also the strategy itself, using the existing pipeline alignment, vertical and horizontal, to streamline the installation of the new pipe, get rid of or minimize the types of utility conflicts and other things that pop up that cost a lot of money to address and a lot of time and a lot of impacts to the community. So there's a number of things. I really congratulate the team on this approach. There are a number of things that we're using in this project to really better evaluate how we can accelerate our program.
I have one final question, which is related to why we don't do whole neighborhoods. Why is everything so disparate here? I'm familiar with the old neighborhood in Mission San Jose. And I don't understand why we're doing one street over here, another street over here, but we're not doing the entire area.
That's something that we have considered as part of our main prioritization mechanism. However, looking at the entire track and then replacing everything that belongs to the same, the whole track. But the logic rationale for this approach is we are prioritizing mains that are susceptible to failure based on the past leak rates or failures on the pipeline. So we are identifying segments that are susceptible to failure. So we are investing on those segments rather than putting all the investment in one area while other segments are failing in other areas. So we are prioritizing on those segments that are going to fail faster based on the analysis that we have seen before.
You and your team are the experts, but when I think about it, I think in terms of when development was done in Fremont, water and sewer were put in at the same time. And so it's the age of the entire tract that is susceptible to, aging and the different life cycle events that can happen. So it's a little bit of a mystery to me.
Yes, if you are looking at age of the main, most likely the entire neighborhood would have been installed around the same time. But age is not the only factor that we look into when we are prioritizing this main. So there are other factors that would play a role in. We look at the past leaks on a pipe segment. If a segment had more than 2 leaks, then we prioritize that as a critical main. And there are some segments that we didn't see any leaks in the past. So those are the ones that could wait, and then we are prioritizing on the ones that have already seen some leaks on the pipes. So generally, that would be the mechanism that we have been applying.
Yeah. Well, I'll just close by saying I've been beating the drum since I've been on the board to do design build and to help accelerate projects, and you can contract out much more this way than doing everything internally. So it's nice to see the team thinking out of the box and looking at how to accelerate things.
Thank you. I think in terms of the expediting projects, so that was one reason we were able to consolidate 3 miles of pipeline into one project, and then put together a contract where we have one team focusing on that, where we are not restricted with resources. And then we also anticipate that during construction, what we have observed so far are major conflicts, utility conflicts that would take a significant amount of time for redesigning on the fly while we are in middle of construction. So we're anticipating that we would save that time during construction, which is very critical because the trenches are out there, and we wanted to minimize interruptions to customers and traffic. So the shorter duration we have for construction, the better it is for everyone. So that's another reason for going with design build, so that we can control those in a better manner.
I actually have one final question. Since I just finished on this paving standard subcommittee in Aqua with Mr. Awoke, who's doing the final paving here?
So this is part of the contractor, the design build team. They will be performing the paving.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And if I might add to the coordination aspect of the design build project, one of the benefits or one of the challenges we've had in the typical conventional design build delivery is, changes or unforeseen conditions during construction and going back and forth between the designer and the contractor, which sometimes could cause, challenges or delays. In this particular case, there are some tangible benefits, even though we may not be able to put actual dollars on them. There is a benefit with the same entity, clarifying issues, dealing with the issues in a more expedient manner, which will translate into benefits to the district and our ratepayers. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Any question or comment, Director Akbari?
Good work, by the way.
Thanks, sir.
Nothing from me, but I'll open up to our member of the public online. If you have any questions, comments, or wish to address the board, please raise your hand in the Zoom app.
Ryan, you can come back after 930 days.
I am.
Date on lessons learned.
I
I'm
think we'll
not
see me before then.
seeing any hands, so I believe you have.
We do have a
One more
staff
slide.
recommendation. Yeah. We can move to that.
Yes, I'll conclude the staff recommendation, which is to, by motion, 1, adopt a resolution awarding the design build contract for the main renewal Fremont Crestwood Street project, job 21433, to West Valley Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $19,049,100. And number 2, authorize the general manager to execute change orders up to 7% of the contract value in a total amount not to exceed $1,333,437 to address unforeseen items that may arise during design or construction of the project.
Move
I have
staff
a
recommendation.
Final
All right.
questions.
So did I hear Director Gunther move staff recommendation? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Director Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed, and Huang.
Aye. Would somebody please invite Director Lee back?
Thank you, Mr. Seidlitz.
Thank you very much. Great job as always. All right, let the record reflect that Director Wee returns to the boardroom at 8:05.
Okay,
Who's
next
gonna-
up is item 5.8, resolution approving the fiscal year 2025-26 consolidated salary schedule. And for this item, I'll turn it over to our Director of Finance and Administration, Mr. Wonderlich.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and public. The board is required to adopt a resolution approving the salary schedule whenever it changes, and this is a CalPERS requirement to make sure employees don't experience any unforeseen challenges with making sure their salaries are properly recognized in their pension benefits should they retire during the year. And so this resolution does list the base pay for all district job classifications. Additionally, because the consolidated salary schedule lists the general managers and department directors' salary ranges, an oral report that summarizes the recommendation is legally required before the board can take action to approve it. The attached consolidated salary schedule is consistent with the board's prior approval of management confidential professional or MCP unrepresented positions receiving a 5% salary adjustment that was effective back in April, and a 3% cost of living adjustment effective with the pay period that includes July 1 of 2025, and approval at the regular June 2025 board meeting of a 6% increase for the general manager. Labor negotiations with our two represented employee groups, OE3 and the Operators Association, or OA, are currently ongoing, and therefore the consolidated salary schedule does not reflect any adjustments for positions represented by these bargaining units. Once bargaining with these units concludes, then we would come back for the board to adopt updated schedules that reflect the new salaries of those covered positions. Approval of this item will help the district achieve its strategic plan goal 3.3, promote financial transparency. The recommendation is by motion, adopt a resolution approving and adopting the attached fiscal year 2025-26 consolidated salary schedule as described in the staff report, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions or comments from the board?
And
I do not see any, our members of the public online has left, and there's no one in the audience in person. Nothing from me also. Do I have a motion to move staff recommendation?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Second.
roll call please.
Director Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
aye.
and Huang.
Aye. With that, let's move on to item 6.1. Well, 6 reports. 6.1 is board committee reports. Does any directors have any questions or comments on 6.1?
No.
Hearing none. How about 6.2 operational reports? Any questions or comments? No? Okay, then let's move on to, I assume we're done with 6.3, so let's move on to 6.4, general manager's report, please.
Well, okay, moving right along. Item 6.4.1 is a GM report on achievement of excellence in procurement award. And guess who gets to talk about that yet again? Mr. Wonderlich.
That's right. Hey, this is exciting stuff.
I know it is.
In 1995, the National Procurement Institute established the Achievement of Excellence in Procurement program designed to recognize organizational excellence in public procurement. This annual award is earned by those organizations that demonstrate excellence by obtaining a high score based on criteria designed to measure innovation, professionalism, productivity, e-procurement, and leadership attributes of the procurement organization. From 9 recipients, the first time it was awarded in 1996, to around 200 per year that currently receive it, it does continue to be recognized as the premier award in the public procurement profession. And so I'm pleased to be able to report that our procurement team here at ACWD continues to perform their duties, in a way that represent these criteria and to continue to be recognized in this manner. And that concludes my report on this.
Questions or comments from the board?
Are these just government agencies?
Yes, I know it's called the National Procurement Institute, but it is a public sector focused organization.
So 200 awardees would be like in the fraction of 1% in the nation?
Yes.
That's outstanding.
It's pretty good.
I believe there's a little more activity within the state of California with this program and through kind of the California chapter of the National Institute. So I think it's a little slightly more common, but even if all 200 were in California, that would still not be a lot relative to how many, cities, counties, special districts there are in the state.
Yeah.
Well-
Have a little barbecue or something for your staff.
We just did ice cream this week.
Mr. Farah will be taking the team out for lunch.
Oh, nice.
If we did a barbecue, we'd have to have procurement go out and secure all that stuff. Not pile on.
Yes.
All right,
It would be
Director.
interesting. We had a page on our website which identified the awards we received within the current year spectrum, so that this being one of them, of course, the bond rating upgrade. It goes on and on. So if there's a short summary, pat on your back page.
All right, any other directors' comments? If not, on this item, if not, any other general managers report?
Got a couple of heads up items. First of all, I'll ask Mr. Awoke to give the board a quick heads up on an upcoming community information meeting.
Thank you again, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, again, board members. As you may recall, the board approved a construction contract for the Alvarado Niles pipeline improvement project. As you may, there is theme of pipeline renewal happening, and so the phase 2 of Alvarado Niles pipeline improvement project is underway, kicking off here in the next couple of months. We have a public meeting scheduled for next Thursday, July 17th. It's going to be at the Union City Library. It's located at 34,007 34007 Alvarado Niles Road in Union City. At this public meetings, we will provide an update on the project, but also share with the community upcoming construction activities and answer any questions the public may have on the project. We do plan to notice this meeting as a potential public meeting in case more than 2 board members wish to attend the meeting. So I just thought I would share that update with the board.
Question for legal. I've always abstained on this item. Live a little too close. Should I avoid this public meeting?
Have you abstained or recused?
Recluse.
Yeah, if you've recused, I would not attend this because I think you're within the,
There's some potential for certain pieces of it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm pretty darn close.
yeah, so if you've recused, you've left the room, and if this potential special board meeting is focused on that project, I would not attend because you should recuse yourself
I
from
was
that as
thinking
well.
that-
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to confirm.
What time is the meeting?
Yes, at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock on Thursday, July 17th,
Anybody
next
needs
week.
directions, I know how to get there.
Okay. Let's see, next up, another heads up. The district will be participating in the Niles Dog Show. This is a traditional thing in Niles. It's been going on for years. We've always had some involvement in that we have property in the area and there's coordination and so forth. But this will be the first time that we actually table the event. So we'll have the district, public affairs staff, some other staff, water use efficiency, and others will be, we'll have our big, what we call our water monster. That's the big water container that we have. We're providing cold, fresh water to the participants, and it might be pretty warm. This is Saturday, the 19th. It's in Niles Community Park. It runs from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We'll of course be there early and we'll stay late as we always do. Our focus in terms of public information at this event, we'll have a whole array of public information like we normally do. But we're focusing on preparedness for emergencies and making sure we're spreading the word about what people ought to be doing in advance of the disaster or the emergency or the water interruption to be prepared. And in going along with that, we have giveaways for our canine friends. And so if you want to stop by the ACWD booth on Saturday, July 19th, you're welcome to do that. Okay?
I was gonna make a suggestion to I'll bring my dogs to represent the district.
Absolutely.
I thought, no, not a good idea.
Well, I mean, feel free to bring your dogs, but if they
They're
don't
not a good
behave, they're not representing ACWD.
Get a little jacket.
Having interest in Niles, I strongly support or encourage us to support the program. The advantage of the water district's presence there is that the commercial sales for the various vendors related to the show can occur on our property, where the city of Fremont had historically discouraged them on their property, not wanting to corrupt their staff, for whatever reason. But second is I attended an Economic Development Committee meeting of the city of Fremont this morning. Learned that later this year, in the next few months, they have copied what's going on in Niles, seeing the success. We'll have 2 doggy days in downtown Fremont at the Fremont Event Center.
As I understand it, this is a very heavily attended event, and so we're expecting to get the word out to a lot of people. Last up, in terms of GM reports, I remain on jury duty. We're sort of just kind of getting started, even though we've been at this for quite a while now. And so it'll be sometime longer that I'll be sort of engaged in that process. Less available to you all, but still available. But I appreciate and thank Mr. Wunderlich for serving as acting general manager for the last 2 weeks. His service in that capacity ends end of business tomorrow. Mr. Awoke will then pick up the mantle and he will run with it for at least the next week, and then I'll give the board further updates as to how things are going beyond that. So if you have an urgent issue, feel free to reach out to Mr. Awoke, and I will send you all an email with the same reminder. Beyond that, that completes our general manager's report. For the
So
day.
basically, if you have a problem, don't call me.
Feel free to call me. Just don't expect me to pick up right away anyway.
All right, so with that, let's move on to director's comments, reports on meetings attended, and agenda item requests. I believe 7.1 is a presentation by Director Sethy and Weed on Alameda County wide oversight for funds returned to special districts post redevelopment agency dissolution.
Yeah, okay. So, Marianne and JR were kind enough to attach the presentation I delivered along with Director Weed. It's in the rear of the package that we have here. So, earlier in the year, I had made a request which was endorsed by Mayor Hannon from Newark to finally get a detailed report on how much money has been returned from the closure of redevelopment agencies back to the special districts. And of course, there are other beneficiaries of the closures too, like the school districts and the community colleges and others. So we finally got that report completed with the county auditor's office, and I prepared a presentation of 12 pages, which provides because I'll be presenting this again in September to the entire Special Districts Association, the complete membership. There are a lot of elected people today who don't quite remember how redevelopment worked and how a percentage of the 1% ad valorem tax was being steered toward redevelopment away from the special districts. As former Governor Brown called it, he was He said it's like Peter stealing from Paul to pay Paul. And he was the advocate that in his beginning of his third administration, he encouraged the legislature to wind down redevelopment, which was started in the 1950s. So my presentation actually is a refresher course on what has transpired over the years. And the final two slides are the meat of the amount of money that's been returned to special districts. So for ACWD, and we've had the closure of all of our redevelopment agencies in the Tri-City area now. So we've accrued about $2 million back over the last dozen years to bring back to our district. AC Transit is the biggest beneficiary. They're getting lots of money back. But we're still in, John and I are not happy about this, but you know, we still have some cities like Oakland that want to drag this out for 50 years and don't want to close their wind down their agencies. So we presented for an hour. We got lots of questions. We were presenting specifically, I gave the report to the Special Districts Board that morning. And then we presented in the evening for 1 hour, 5 to 6, to the board of directors of the Alameda County Mosquito Abatement District. The reason I picked that is because their board of directors is composed of 15 members that are all mayors or the mayor's appointees. So this was a good report to give to that audience of people. All right, the second is item 7.2. I attended the Aqua live webinar, which was done with the Aqua Foundation. And Ms. Persyke, who is helping us with some of our other work, was leading the discussion. Was really good for an hour and a half. They went into all these innovative new strategies for hiring in the water and wastewater industry. I was able to get Don Carlisle and another person from HR to join in. And I think we all thought it was really an eye-opener. The impetus for the foundation looking at supporting these new type of efforts is that unfortunately the foundation was started on DEI outreach, and a lot of that was pushed by Santa Clara Valley Water District, but it didn't sell across the water industry. And the foundation has really struggled to get people to help fund the foundation. Of course, ACWD provided the first check. So DEI is not a selling point around the state of California in the water industry or wastewater. And so they've put their kind of rethought things through, and they're putting it on building that future workforce, regardless of the other cultural issues that might be out there. And I thought the new thinking here was really out of the box. I said it at a recent meeting here. We haven't seen this out of Aqua or CSDA recently that I can remember. So I was really happy to see that they're taking a whole new look at how to support water and wastewater agencies. And hopefully this will encourage people to make more contributions to the foundation. That's my report.
Thank you, Director Sethy. Any other directors' comments? Director Akbari?
I just wanted to mention that I had a very appreciative customer reach out to me a couple days ago and wanted me to specifically thank our customer service team for helping I didn't get the full context around the issue, but it was the owners of Holler's Pharmacy had issue with something related to ACWD, was able to get it resolved very quickly, and wanted me to give a special shout out to Adam, I believe in customer service, might be in customer service or engineering. But I see Garoon giving me a no, so I'm thinking maybe Adam.
Adam is in our distribution maintenance
Very
group.
good.
He'll be the
Okay.
one, oftentimes when you call our sort of emergency number.
Yeah.
We'll dispatch somebody out there to go figure stuff out. And Adam is one of those people that does a tremendous job, as a great ambassador for the district, and crazy smart, very effective, and helps people out all the time.
Well, I just want to pass that along, and I hope
That's
you
great.
pass that
Thank
message
you.
to Adam and let him know that the customer was very, very happy.
Thank you.
All right. With that, any other question or comment, Director Weed? Nope. All right. Hey, that makes it easy. Then that's our last item. So I will say our meeting is adjourned at 8:26.
All right. Thanks very much, everybody.
8 disappeared, right?
Yep.